time. Dave, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, fellas. It's great to be on with you guys. And, talking some Bears and NFL. And it's here. It is here and going full speed ahead. I laugh every time I'm down in Miami, as you guys know, and every time I hear me saying, Dustin, on the promo, we don't want to waste time on that. He was asking me about the Notre Dame-Miami game. Well, let me tell you, when that game gets here this year, we're going to have some – I'm down in Miami, and this is hurricane country, so we're going to have some good talk on your show. Absolutely.
That might be the college football playoff final. You never
Wow.
know.
It could be, David. It could be, David. Well, that game, they're playing in South Bend this year, so it's convicts and Catholics. Here we come. Yep.
You can break out your old T-shirts.
God,
Saturday, November 7th, prime time, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. We're already counting down.
You know,
did you guys see? Not to get on, we'll get on here in a minute, but they just announced that Miami was one of 4 teams that spent $40 million. They announced
my
20.
gosh.
They said that they have got up to close to $40 million spent on players. It's incredible, guys. It really is. And Ohio State, I forget the other 2 teams. I can't remember now, but I know that Miami was one of 4. There were 4 teams. Yep.
That's an insane amount of money. Just, I don't know how other teams are supposed to compete with that. Seriously, I think that if the national championship going rate is that much money, then doesn't any team that has any kind of hope of winning a title have to spend that money? Doesn't that raise the bar for everyone? It's out of control.
I guess it's out of control. I don't have an answer, but the only reason I bring it up is they were talking about it here locally yesterday.
All right, Dave. So the Bears are at Cincinnati, joint practices with the Bengals. Mixed results from the offense on Thursday. You get reports of some flashes on defense. As a coach, what's the best reason for these joint practices? What is the main purpose you're looking to get out of? Because it seems like this is a good time to get your team calloused and tougher and thudded up, as they say.
Yeah, it is. And, what's happened is almost every team – I'm down here in Miami, as I told you, kind of hanging out for a few days, just tuning up my mindset on what's going on in the NFL and all the different situations and watching tape. And the Giants were here yesterday. With John Harbaugh and those guys. And so firsthand, I can tell you that both teams were looking, obviously, just for a different look, but they weren't tackling. But then they're going to limit their players, the starters, in the preseason game. And I don't know if Ben has announced yet what he's going to do, because he's on the high side as far as which I like, which I always did, obviously. I wanted my guys playing in the game, but it's turned now where they're using these joint practices, David, to get the reps with your starter. And both teams down here, from a starting standpoint, if I think each starting unit got about 40 plays against each other, good on good. So you're getting that type of work without tackling and taking guys to the ground. You have officials there, so you're getting some flags called. You can control situations. I think this is one of the biggest things. In other words, you can have coming off the goal line plays. You're going to have a red zone play. You're going to have a period where you're going to get blitz. You're going to get a 2-minute drill. A lot of these things, they don't happen in a game, so you could go 2 games. I remember one time we were into our last preseason game, to give you an idea, and we had not gotten into a 2-minute drill. And it was my first year when Jim Harbaugh was our quarterback, and I remember telling Ron Turner, our offensive coordinator, I said, Ron, the second or third series of the game, let's just go 2 minutes. We got to get some work on this with officials and the lights and scoreboard and all that stuff. And so we did it. People thought we were crazy, but you're trying to get some work at it before you have to do it for real. So I think the joint practices will guarantee you that you're going to get situational work, good against good, and you're also going to get some different looks. A team might be a 2-deep team, a team might be a 3-deep team. So you're getting different looks than what your defense is day in and day out. So those are just some of the benefit things that just come off the top of my head.
Ben Johnson has yet to announce whether the starters will play. The assumption is that they will not, because Zach Taylor has announced that the Bengals starters will not play. And you would imagine that will, since they're practicing against each other, it'll probably go in unison. But Ben said that he would review what the practice tape looked like before making that call. So, you could even look at that as maybe saying to your players, if you guys are sharp enough in practice, then you won't have to play on Saturday. Maybe you take it that way. But I don't think anyone is expecting a ton from the Bears in this game. They also, Tyson Bagent has a hamstring that he picked up in the first game, and he didn't even travel to this practice. He's not going to be able to play, which would seemingly indicate that Case Keenum, who's had a good career and is a pretty good player, played well against the backups last time, most likely to start the game and probably would have to play maybe even the first half of it, Dave.
You know what? I'd be curious. Ask Bigsy, because he'd be the guy to know how many plays did our starters get against Cincinnati in the joint practices. Because I would be really curious about that, because I know for a fact these guys down here got in the 40s. They were around 40 plays that the starters got. So I'd be curious what Cincinnati and the Bears got against each other, So anyway, that's kind of what you're trying to get out of it. The controlled situations that you're going to have to practice for sure, and then different looks. They would be the two things that would come to mind that I'm sure Ben Johnson wanted to. And then, the young guys are getting an opportunity to play, and you're still evaluating. You don't have to cut down till the end of August there. So, I mean, you still have another – most teams have got 90 now. They got to cut to 53, so they're going to have to cut around 40 players here in a couple of weeks. So there's I know there'll be 15, 16 guys on practice squad, but so 30 guys will be gone. Let's just say that 25 to 30 players will not be on the team here in a couple of weeks or a week, and so they're still trying to make some final evaluations. Okay, these two guys are equal. Which ones do we want to keep? This guy gives me a little on special teams. Good. This guy makes a lot more mental mistakes. Okay. So they're going through that. You got your list, your checklist, and you're doing some comparison between players, and a lot of guys separate themselves in these preseason games.
You had a couple skirmishes, Dio Adangbo getting tangled up with Joe Burrow, and then the new receiver Ray McLeod throwing a punch at one of the defensive backs for the Bengals, Dave. You see it around camps all over the NFL. It's a fact of training camp life, I think, in these joint sessions. What was your policy regarding fights? Because as much as coaches want to limit or avoid them because of the exposure to possible injury, is there a part of every coach that doesn't mind it because it shows a bit of an edge?
Yeah, it does. And, my first experience of doing this as a head coach was, if you remember, I know Mully was there. Bill Belichick was at Cleveland, and Bill for 3 years brought his team to Platteville, and it was, and Bill and I had a great agreement. There was fights, but hey, if the player gets into a fight, pull him out of the drill. I'm pulling my guy out. He sits for the rest of the drill. You pull your guy out, and when it did happen, Bill and I both did it. And we moved on. We kept the practice going, and that was it. I just saw, and I'm sure you guys talked about it, where the Cowboys and the Saints got fined $500,000 each, for the big brawl that they had during several brawls, I guess is the way it was stated. I didn't see any of them. But my point there is that's kind of BS. I mean, who are you going to find? You're finding the owner. You should find the players. I mean, if a player goes out there and he brawls and somebody comes off the bench and jumps in, we got into a big fight yesterday here, and I was on the one field. The fight was on the other field, and the players from the field that I was on took off running, and we were standing there. Giants had about 5 guys on defense, and we had about 5 guys on offense. Everybody else was in the fight on the other field. So, I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. And it just wasted time. Nobody got involved in the fight. They just ran over, and it's a waste of time is what it is. 2 players get into it. They're pushing, they're shoving. Somebody does something. Okay, pull them out of the drill. But, guys, we're out here to get work done. We got to go to the next play. We got to get some reps. We can't be wasting 10 minutes of practice, on pulling guys off of each other. That's a waste of time.
Dave, I'm curious. You've been obviously through so many NFL seasons and you've seen it all. I'm curious if you ever have seen this or had a similar situation, kind of what the Bears are facing with Kyler Gordon. He is still unable to get on the practice field. It was very interesting to hear Ben Johnson asked for an update to his status, where he was sort of biting off questions and just saying, nope, nothing new. Nope, yeah, no, he's out there. Oh, I see him in the building, and there's nothing to report. It's clear that they want him on the field, and it's clear that the player doesn't believe that he's ready to be on the field, and that is a guy that's being paid a lot of money, has a lot of money coming to him. It's not a great long-term prospect for him if he can't play, but he missed so much time last year. He went with them to Cincinnati, and he's unable to practice, but he is there, and they talk about him being in the meetings. But you can tell that coaches don't do handstands about players that are unable to actually prepare for the season.
Right.
It is really interesting to see this dynamic unfold. Have you been through that before? And
God, yeah.
How long does that work out?
Well, I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve. I have a tough time hiding them. And Ben's a little bit, he's been that way. And I was only there a week and a half ago, and there's, the soft tissue injuries, they drive coaches crazy because nobody really sees anything. You know what I mean? I mean, if a guy tears up his knee or he has a separated shoulder or something, it's real. You can, but these injuries that nothing visible, the coaches can't see anything, and the players, it's frustrating, and that's where they're at right now. I can tell you that a week and a half ago, and they were given the same answers. And it was frustration that I was reading, and it almost sounds like they moved on with the rookie, and they're going to just go with them, and in 1 week's time to go out there and play. Now you're getting into that danger zone of, now you will get hurt because you haven't been practicing. You know what I mean? So right. It's tough. It's frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for the kid, unless he just lost his desire to play. I don't know. I mean, you
always hear that, Dave. Dave, you always hear the criticism
such an indictment.
The player, he has to be perfect to play. If he feels something, and I'm not saying
100%er,
but that's kind of the way we've.
That's a heck of a label. It's a hard one to shake.
Boy, he doesn't play that way though, guys. And being a safety and a nickel, David, you can relate. I mean, this guy is a blitzer. This guy is not a guy that says I'm being paid. I've had corners that say I'm being paid to cover.
He doesn't play soft.
No, he doesn't.
Whoa, guy says that. I'm thinking,
but he doesn't play.
Yeah, this guy's a tough guy. You see him blitz. You see him tackle. He plays the game physical. That's what's really kind of a mystery in this whole thing.
Dave, so I think coming into this weekend, the assumption was, well, you know what? Caleb Williams didn't play in the opener. Ben Johnson talked like a guy that didn't need to see him in preseason. And then the reports out of yesterday were so mixed. You wonder the offense wasn't clicking, and then there was an interception. As a coach, if you go into something like your preseason games with one plan. Would a bad practice be enough to change your mind and your approach to the preseason the next day? In that, would you be surprised if Ben Johnson's reaction to practice on Thursday was like, "Oh, you know what? We're going to play. We're going to play because that offense wasn't good enough, and we need to be sharper."
Would that surprise me? No, it really wouldn't. The problem you got with the quarterback, if Caleb is in there, the entire offensive line and his weapons need to be in there. So with one individual player, you can stick him in there, but the quarterback is so unique, particularly with Caleb. It wouldn't be fair to Caleb to stick him in there and not have Colson play and not have Burden play or Rome. Or a couple of the offensive linemen. That wouldn't make any sense to me. But the whole unit, would I be totally shocked if Ben came out and said that? No, I would not be, not one bit, because he's, I hate the term old school because people say I'm old school, which I am, but to a degree. But Ben's got that old school tough mentality, and he doesn't care. If he doesn't think they're where they're going to be, it would not totally shock me.
We look at this team, obviously, and there's more concern defensively than there is for the offense, because probably Ben's relationship with Caleb, the way he's pushing him, the way we've seen him working to get better and everything we've heard. I think the problem defensively is that you're kind of short players. You don't seem like you have the same class of talent throughout each position that you have on the offensive side of the ball. It's difficult to figure out the strength of the defense. And when they have talked about that subject matter, they've talked about coaching them up and coaching them better. Can you, with a defense, coach them to be better than they are collectively as athletes and talents?
Yeah, well, I think last year was a great example of it. If you're banged up and you're hurt, you can give, I used to keep an expression everywhere I coached. And it said that the offense and special teams can be affected by the elements, by the wind, the cold, the rain. But if you know what to do and give fanatical effort, we should play good defense every week. And when you look what Dennis Allen did with the defense last year, guys, we were crippled. We had 3 or 4 of the starting secondary guys out the first 3 or 4 weeks, not counting anybody else. And he kept it simple. He stayed away from exotic blitzes and pressures, which he likes to do. And the guys played their tails off for him. And as a result, we led the NFL in takeaways and turnovers. And most of those turnovers were caused by guys, the second guy getting there and getting the ball. Anytime the ball was on the ground, we had 3 guys around it. And that's just given fanatical effort. So I think that's the approach, when you're not overly talented and you have some injuries, you got to keep it, clear mind means fast feet philosophy. And you have to be give your guys a chance to play fast and play hard, and good things will happen. That was the philosophy last year with Dennis Allen. We're probably going to be going around a similar path this year, at least early in the season, guys.